You're not podcasting if you're not sweating.
Mouth noises. Oh,
I'm a zombie.
Oh.
It's Scaretober.
Welcome to the 60 Cycle Home.
And you know what? Hi, I'm Ryan.
And I'm Steve. And this is 60 Cycle Home, the guitar, bike, selling, trading, body, fixing, breaking, reviewing, playing, podcast. Hey, man.
You know what? You're wrong about solid state amps. You are, not you. Steve is right about them.
I own several, man.
We had a topic call out from Kyle Barnhart. He said, if people embrace solid state amps when they were first introduced into the market versus hating on them for not having tubes, how far along do you think that tech would have come if the market actually liked the stuff and there was a bigger demand for it? Would companies have had the innovation to make better stuff sooner if people actually cared about it? Or was it actually just crappy due to the resources available at the time? P.S. I'm only asking because I got an 80s PV Bandit the other day, and to be honest, I think they really were making great stuff all along. People just choose to ignore it. The Bandits are awesome.
Yeah, I think
they're great, and
he got the blue stripe Bandit.
Nice. Those are fun. Here's part of the problem with the premise of the question is that solid state amps didn't start out with the reputation they have now. They started out as like kind of like a hi-fi option.
Yeah.
They started out as like, oh, here's hot new technology that is better than tubes in a way. Solid state started out with the marketing that Kemper has.
Well,
you know, it's like, yeah, there's some crappy versions of digital, but here's like the cream of the crop. You know, tippity top stuff.
It rises to the top.
Yeah. And there was a lot of like boutique-y solid state stuff throughout the 70s into the early 80s.
You know, there's different periods.
I mean, one of the most famous amps of all time, the Roland, JCM 120?
The Roland JC 120.
JC 120, solid state amplifier.
Yeah, the clean machine. Every metal band in the 80s had a JC 120 just for that one clean song that they had.
Right.
Just for that one power ballad.
Right. And they ran a 12-string BC Rich acoustic through it.
That's not as far off.
No.
as it's not as ridiculous as it sounds.
So what were you going to say, Steve?
I was going to say that there were probably some early solid state amps that were trash. Right.
Oh, totally.
But
just like didn't find a market, you know. Well, there's trash that's like it doesn't sound the way that you want an amp to sound because really you should be getting a tube amp. And there's trash that's like, wow, this is built poorly and it's it's got major design flaws to it, sort of thing.
Yeah. But on the other hand, there were a lot of guitar amps that were great.
Oh, fantastic!
Solid state amps. And some of them, were used by major players. I think bass players in particular were really early adopters, of course, of solid state amps. Probably the most
more power, more headroom.
Yeah, the
more clarity.
The most famous of which in that time, well, a couple of famous ones
like faster response, like you don't get that sag from tubes.
Jaco Pastorius with the acoustic 360s. John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin also with the acoustic stuff. And then
Albert King was using solid state.
Albert King was using, I believe, an acoustic 260.
Yeah.
There's pictures of the Doors performing live with full acoustic backlines. And acoustic was one of these brands that
Steve and I are acoustic fans.
Yeah, they kind of they adopted like the Marshall model. So Jim Marshall was really well known when he was alive and when he was in control of Marshall.
He's not well known anymore now. That's what Steve was saying.
He was well known for like Marshall didn't do artist discounts.
Right.
It was, or at least they didn't get, I don't know if they didn't do artist discounts, but at least they didn't give product away. They never said like, hey, you want to be a Marshall artist? We'll give you some amps. It was, hey, you want to be a Marshall artist? okay, come buy our amps and you can be, acoustic was the same way. They didn't give any of that stuff away. Some of them did have reliability issues. Oh my gosh, the name just slipped out of my mind, but there was a well-known jazz fusion player. I'm going to be so mad that I forgot. Pat Metheny.
Okay.
Used an acoustic 134 for a long time. Apparently, he loved the tone so much that despite the fact that it kept I think he owned 2 of them because one of them was like always in the shop, basically.
Right.
Now that wasn't our experience. The 134 is a combo version of the 150. It wasn't our experience with the 150s
no.
But we probably weren't playing as many shows as Pat Metheny was. So
no. I mean, we've gigged our acoustics pretty hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, not nearly that amount.
When he wasn't using Fender Twin Reverbs, BB King was using a Gibson Lab Series L5, which was a pretty famous solid state amp as well.
My theory on, and it's I think a fairly well-educated theory, on why solid state has a bad reputation is because, one, at a certain point, it was exciting new technology and it had its benefits, and there were reasons why people wanted to have it. 2, it was very affordable to crank out cheap versions of solid state, and it just dominated the beginner practice amp market. Like that section of the retail market for amplifiers just became nothing but solid state 15-watt amplifiers with crappy little 8-inch speakers and terrible drive sections and stuff like that. And I think that was really the thing that killed people's impression of solid state amps. Is like, oh, I've had a solid state amp. It wasn't very good. It was my first amp. It's like, yeah, it was your first amp. If you are trying to chase down big, heavy, crushing, thick, heavy metal sounds, and you started out with a Champ, you're going to think a Champ sucks, even though it's a tube amp. It's not the right amp for what you're trying to play. Same with a 15-watt practice solid state amp. It's not going to sound the way the vast majority of people want to sound, because it's not that. It's not anything, really. It's a way to have volume with your first guitar. And so the overabundance of that technology as an affordable beginner's amp, I think really ruined its reputation, and it made it harder for people to justify higher end solid state.
There's definitely a lot to that. 8-inch speakers, like you said, on the 12 or on the 10 and 15 watt amps, didn't help. All the times they're the cheapest speaker. Cheap speakers aren't always necessarily the worst speakers, but when you're having a combination of across the board, just the cheapest components you can get, people say oh, you got make sure you're running good speaker because your sound's only as good as the weakest link, right?
Right.
Or you got to use good cables because your sound's only as good as the weakest link. When you're running a cheap solid state amp, every component is the weakest link. But before my sister blew it up, I had a Crate GFX 15.
Yeah.
Which is their stupid little...
I had the 15R, which had a real spring reverb.
Yeah, the GFX 15 was all digital effects.
Yep.
And I took that, and I took the speaker out from it. I don't know why it had a speaker out, but it had a speaker out. And I plugged it into a Mesa Boogie 4x12. And that thing all of a sudden sounded
great,
massive, especially in my bedroom. But it sounded way better.
Yeah.
And, not all speakers are the same. I don't know if you remember this. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. We used to use 4x12s for PAs.
We did. We had that Fender, and we had a Mesa, I think.
That was that was my Mesa.
I had that Carvin.
You had that Carvin one too.
Yeah.
And I remember running the Fender and the Mesa at the same time, and the volume difference between the two they were both 4x12s, but the volume difference between the two was huge because the Fender had the cheap Fender, Fender special design blue sticker speaker in it. And the Mesa had, it's called the Black Shadow speaker.
Oh, I don't remember.
Just this massive, that Mesa cabinet weighed twice as much as the Fender cabinet did.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. And it was easily a good, probably at least 50% louder, if not double the volume. I mean, it sounded
perceived
massive.
volume, Steve.
Perceived volume. And one of the speakers had a full tear in it. And it was basically
That's
running
where the tone was.
Sometimes I put my head down next to that speaker. I was like, this is the speaker that sounds good. So, I think at the core
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I think at the core of this question, I think solid state, a lot of the brands that were trying to do solid state, I think the technology didn't complement the sound that people wanted.
Sure.
I think
that's what I was going to get to is like, there are very clear reasons why you should buy a tube amp over a solid state amp. And it is, none of those reasons are because it's better. It's not because it's better. It's because it's different. If you want an amp that does high gain sounds well, or like edge of breakup sounds well, like basically any gain, like amps like the Bandit and stuff like that do have a gain section. Like they're fun, they're fine, but they're not tube breakup,
right?
Which is, it's a very like desirable sound and feel to an amp to have that tube compression and that tube breakup. But if you don't play for those sorts of sounds and you want clean and you want thump and you want like immediate like response and you want headroom and things like that, solid states are amazing.
Yeah.
To do those sorts of things with a tube amp, you have to get really high up in wattage to have that headroom, because tube amps are made to break up. They're made to compress and squish. They're made to get dirty when you push them. Solid states, that's not their specialty. They have other specialties, and it doesn't mean they're bad. It just means they're different.
I think there are other things at play. Now, one thing that I can't comment on, I've heard this before. I'm not an engineer. I'm not an engineer.
But you did pass the test to become a sales engineer.
That's true.
You could be an engineer, Steve.
I could potentially pursue a career as a sales engineer.
Sales engineering. I've got a degree in sales engineering.
I have heard that when you push a solid state amp into like the distortion that will occur when you like push a transistor too far in a typical,
you're making a fuzz.
That it's like the harmonics that are induced are different,
right,
than you get from a tube, and that's why it sounds bad. I don't know if that's the case. The other thing
they're not made to do it.
There are certain aspects of people go like, well, a 15 watt AC 15 is just as loud as my 100 watt Marshall MG 100 or whatever, and some of that is because the way that the wattage is measured is different. Because like you said, or kind of combining our two ideas here, solid state tends to go clean, all the way up to its limit of clean.
Right.
And then
square wave.
Whereas tubes tend to round off. And so they're kind of sitting in this soft distortion range where they're getting louder and louder, and they're getting a little more distorted, but not a ton more distorted. They're already distorted enough that you can no longer call it clean power.
Right.
So 15 watts, you're like maximum clean power, but you're still like pushing, and you're still kind of getting louder without that cutoff. So there's some things like that at play.
Like my Princeton's, like they don't really get louder past 5 on the dial. They just get dirtier.
That's how my Hot Rod Deluxe was.
Right.
My Hot Rod Deluxe didn't even really get louder past like 3 on the dial.
Right. It's just, yeah. You're trying to find that spot underneath 1 for your clean volume in bedroom,
And so, from that perspective, it is kind of about the tool. Now, going back to what Kyle initially kind of asked is like, was this abandoned technology? I think yes and no. There were attempts later on at making, first of all, I'd say like the Gibson the Lab Series amps, Acoustic Control, Roland, these kinds of brands, they were making high-end solid-state amplifiers. They were not cheap.
No. They were as expensive as like I said earlier, like they were like a boutique version. of a solid state amp. Like that, and that's how they were priced. Like it was like buying a matchless, you know.
There were other brands. I own one from
That's right, a matchless Chieftain.
No, I do not own a matchless Chieftain. I do own an amp from a brand called Session or Award Session. That was an attempt at making a high-end, kind of a Mesa style solid state amp. It sounds pretty good. It's very boxy. I actually preferred the acoustics to that because it was like 75 watts through a 1x12.
Isn't that one thing? That thing's like impossibly loud, right?
Yeah, it's super directional.
Right.
Very
like a laser
loud.
beam.
I never
It's
really
a weapon.
never really felt like I could dial in like the sounds I wanted. And then I let someone borrow it, and when I got it back, like at least one or two knobs were broken off because they were just like plastic pots.
Right.
Because they use these super long connector pots. But the guts of it, because I took the thing apart before to figure out how do I replace these pots, the way I think I would replace it if I ever decide to work on it is to like use a traditional style pot and just run wire.
Oh, interesting.
Instead of, because they're like kind of board mount. They're these board mounted long. So
I see what you mean.
The pot's like this long, but then they have these like 3 metal pieces that connect all the way down to the PCB.
So you would attach the pot to the face of the control panel and then run wire down to the board.
Yeah, just run like a regular wire.
Okay.
But what they use to make these amps like they were pretty heavy for what you think for a solid state amp.
Right.
But in order to get that 75 watts,
big
and it's actually
transformers
pretty
in there.
quiet, is they put a big toroidal transformer in it. So one of the things that a lot of solid state amps, even like bigger solid state amps, especially now, when they go into higher power, like they're doing it with the smallest transformer they can do. Well, Award Session, they decided, let's throw all that out. We're going to like design our own transformer to figure out how to do this.
Right.
Was it successful? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I always thought it sounded good, but again, I didn't have like the best use for it. There was another brand. I don't remember when they were in business. I don't think they are in business anymore. Called Pritchard, and Pritchard for a long time, for like a few years, they were kind of like considered like a secret weapon solid state amp that a lot of people loved. Like people who heard them loved them, but I think again, solid state was such a dirty word in the 90s and the early 2000s, and even really up until probably the early 2010s, mid 2010s, that I think it was just hard to have that market.
Right.
It was like as you said, Roland JC120 and nothing else. Now, part of that too is that you run into this thing where in the late 90s you start getting into a lot of emulation. PV's doing the trans tube thing.
Right.
They're trying to emulate tube sound through different methods, different, whether it's JFETs, whatever, different transistors, or now you start getting like the single valve hybrid amps where, we put a 12AX7 for your drive channel.
Yeah.
And then you start having line 6 around the same time come out, and these other, Boss had like the GT3, I think, where it's digital emulation. And so people go, well, that's solid state. In my mind, and I think this is one opinion that I have that I think should be everyone's opinion.
There we go.
That
Steve thinks that you should think this.
That we should be more discerning in the way that we think about amp technology. So, comparing an acoustic 150, I would say that's a solid state amp.
Yeah.
I would say, you don't have any other solid state amps in here.
Well, the Boss bass katana for bass guitar.
Yeah, you have the Boss
It's a
bass
digital
katana for bass guitar. Yeah. But I would say digital and solid state are different. When I think of solid state, I think of
there's a solid state amplifier in a digital amplifier,
right?
But that's not the point.
There's a solid state amplifier, but a digital preamp,
right?
And so to me, it's like the same. That's like a different kind of hybrid. So you say like, well, if it has a solid state preamp and power tubes, well, it's a hybrid. Or if it has a solid state preamp or a tube preamp, but a solid state power amp, then it's a hybrid. But to me, a digital preamp going into a solid state, in a lot of the cases, like the Katana, I think this is the Katana here, or different things are using Class D power amps.
Technically, anything with a speaker that's, a electrical device is a solid state amplifier at some point in its circuitry, right? It has some sort of solid state, amp to push the signal. Like even if you're running headphones out of a modeler, it's a digital.
Sure.
It's a solid state amplifier to a certain extent because that power needs to be, but it's set at a level that you can actually function speakers with it.
I'm just saying, I think it's important. Like I think of it as there's digital solid state,
right,
and there's analog solid state. And I think it's important to differentiate the technologies.
Like your Crate GX 15 or whatever it was.
Yeah, that was a solid state with digital effects.
It was solid. It was a different hybrid, solid state with digital. Yeah. Now you have digital with solid state, where it's like,
yeah.
I mean, you know what, the Katana is kind of like that. It's supposed to be mostly a solid state amp that happens to have digital stuff attached to it.
And that's my understanding.
Right.
So the only reason I pull that out is because I hear this where I say like, no, there are good solid state amps out there. I don't know in terms of modern production what I would say, oh, this is a great solid state amp that everyone should go try out.
Quilter.
Quilter's a great one. Actually, so I posted this on Instagram recently. I've got an old Crate Power Block. Old.
Yeah. It's old.
Early 2000s. Yeah, it's almost vintage.
20 years old or something like that.
And that thing's great. It's an early example of a Class D guitar amplifier. And it's all, as far as I know, there's no digital components. It's just a analog solid state amplifier with a Class D power amp. And that's different. So people say like, oh, solid state sucks because I owned a Line 6 Spider. And it's like, not only is that a digital solid state amp, but it's like the worst example.
Right.
You know, it was a Spider 1 or a Spider 2. You know, I've heard the Spider 4s are good and the Spider 5s are supposed to be good, but
going back to the question, one of the reasons why I have remained open to solid state amps over the years is because I did own a PV Bandit.
Yeah.
Which is they're affordable. They're wonderfully affordable. I had the version with the gray buttons and you can press both of them in at the same time. So you can engage both gain circuits at the same time. Secret little trick there, guys.
Is that the blue pipe or the silver pipe?
Silver pipe, but before the red logo.
Yeah. I've heard the red ones weren't that good.
They have I want those push buttons to get the combinations. They have those. They use the slider switch on the red logo one, but it was an excellent sounding amplifier, excellent pedal platform. I used to put a 10-band EQ in the effects loop, and you could shape the gain to sound like whatever you wanted. Mostly I was just scooping the mids because it was the 90s.
Yeah.
But even the reverb on that amplifier was fantastic. That's when I first got my chance to try some drip and a spring reverb. Sometimes I think about picking up that style amp again. I sold it to a friend for $100 or something like that. He
probably still has it. Call him up.
He probably doesn't. He's an adult with children now or something. I don't know if I even have him on Facebook.
Probably in the rafters of his garage.
You think he's in that? What?
I don't know.
Is this like a Spooktober thing, Steve? Or are you saying he's like a spooky guy in the rafters?
Oh,
the
amp.
The amp is okay.
The amp is probably holding up a couch or something.
That guy did have a silver screw DS1 though. And I think before I even knew that's cool, I think I offered to buy it from him and he's like, nah, I like it. If I could go back,
that's mine.
I'd be like, no, you don't understand. I'm going to pay you $100 for this. He probably would have been like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was cool.
I'm trying to think. I guess maybe do you have any other thoughts on this topic?
Try a good solid state amp.
I think that's what I would say is try stuff. It's okay to like what you like.
Yeah. If you are dependent on tube sag and compression and that beautiful light edge of breakup sound, or a heavy high gain tube distortion, then obviously you don't need solid state. Yeah. But if you're a clean player, a pedal platform player, maybe even an aggressive player, you want a really sharp attack on your notes, think about checking out some solid state. That's all I'm saying.
Even maybe, I don't know, maybe the PVXXL might be up your lane. That's a solid state amp.
I love the acoustics for surf guitar.
Yeah.
And traditionally, surf guitar is played with really big high wattage tube amps. but they don't typically get pushed to the edge of drive.
Yeah.
Because they're so big and clean. Like the acoustic control as a surf amp, it's just got that attack, but it also has this warmth and this presence and this energy to it that you don't associate with the cheap, solid state amps of our youth.
No, it's an overbuilt,
Right.
big overbuilt amp.
Yeah.
And, it's the same kind of thing. Now you think, going back to kind of the analogy you made earlier, right? Like,
I think people
think about all those old, like, think about all of, like, now we think they're cool, right? Now, Jackson Audio just teamed up with Silvertone to make the Silvertone 1484 pedal. Right. It's the Twin 12 pedal. I think they're actually calling it the 1484 because it's actually in partnership with Silvertone. And I've heard it sounds really good. But I remember, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, something like that, you could get a 1484 for like under $400.
Yeah.
Like
Thanks a lot, Jack cheap. White.
And there were a lot of guitar amps in that era where really, I think prior to Jack White and these kind of like lo-fi sounds where people all of a sudden were like, hey, maybe this dumb little 10-watt Silvertone tube amp is kind of cool. Nobody cared about that stuff, and you can get them dirt cheap. And there were people who were like, oh, I bought one of those things and I took it to the blues club and I turned it up to 10 and it exploded. So, but those guys didn't swear off solid. They didn't swear off tube amps. They just went and got a bigger tube amp.
Yeah.
But those amps,
are
those dumb little Silvertones and what other brands were there? Like Garnet, I think, was one of them. And Harmony had amps, and Alamo.
I've got an Alamo under the table.
Is it a tube amp?
Yeah.
Yeah, all of those kinds of things. Like, nobody cared about them. They were student grade amps that if you pushed them too hard, they'd blow up. They're all like 5 to 10 watts.
They're like grounded correctly.
And they're like a cheap 5 watts, so they wouldn't fill a room.
Right.
And they were the equivalent to the Crate GX15 of the 80s and 90s. Or, the PV Audition. Or the Rage 158 or whatever.
It's funny to me that, like, there's dozens and dozens of different specific tastes in tube amps. But when people get a tube amp that doesn't fit their needs, they don't go like, oh, tube amps suck.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a metal player. Like, this, this little like 5-watt thing, this 5-watt tube amp like does not sound metal. Like, tube amps suck. I'm gonna go solid state. For some reason, we're not conditioned to think that way, but we get a bad solid state in our lives because it's some cheap practice amp. We're like, oh, that's what solid state sounds like. No, there's as much variation as there is, maybe not as much, but there is variation in solid state as there is in tubes. And there's different ways to make that circuit. Another
really cool solid state amp that I sold a couple years ago was a Polytone. I had that Polytone.
The Polytone was really super cool.
And I sold that, but it was super. When I would do church retreats where I didn't know what other musicians were going to be there, I didn't really know what the gig demanded, I would take that amp because I'd take that amp and a small pedal board and I'd take an electric guitar and a bass. And that amp would do everything. If they could mic it up, then I'd mic it up. If they couldn't mic it up, it was friggin' like 130 watts, so it could carry the room.
Right.
And I could run whatever I needed to through it.
Yeah.
And there were if it was a slow song, maybe I'd play bass for 3 songs, and then I'd switch over to electric guitar for like the slow song, and I'd have electric guitar backing an acoustic guitar for just a slow song or whatever. And it was super cool. It's very versatile. It's the right piece of gear for that venue.
I think people think of as solid state amps like as an equivalent to a microwave when a tube amp is a gas range. But I think, and that might be true for like your cheap practice amp solid states.
Sure.
Where it's like, okay, here's something that like, it gets it hot, it does the job, but it's like, no one wants a microwave steak. What are you doing? No one wants to eat microwaved chicken. I think the range is microwave is your cheapest, practice amp, whatever. But the good, like the higher end, the well-made, well thought out and designed solid state amps are like a crock pot. Delicious things come out of a crock pot. They're warm. They warm your house. They fill your house with beautiful smells. You have emotional attachments to your family crock pot and things like that. There is an opportunity for a solid state amp to be the crock pot in your life versus the crappy tabletop microwave you had in college. That's my
I like that analogy.
That's my final thoughts on that.
If you enjoyed this content, head on over to patreon.com/60cyclehomeCast, where for as little as $1 a month, you can support the production of this program and our lives.
It pays for a lot of things that make this show and other videos on this channel possible. Lights, cameras, cables, action. The bills that we have to pay for hosting various services and for various tools and utilities that we use. The mailbox. We're about to open some mail. It pays for the UPS box that allows us to receive mail from strangers without them knowing where I live.
So head on over. I owe a lot of people a lot of things. I'm getting we'll talk about it more in the what's new.
Right. Are we going to open this mail now?
No, let's do this ad.
All right, we'll open the mail later. We are going to open the mail though, right,
We
Steve?
are going to open the mail. I made a note so we can open the mail.
I'm closing my knife. I was all ready to open it, Steve.
Oh, man, you're ready to stab the mail. This was sent by Screen Drag, Craig Brinker. This is in Australia. It's 250 Australian dollars.
Oh, Spike.
There is the description just says bass guitar.
You don't know how grateful I am for you. Do you know that song?
No, I don't.
It's an Aquabat song.
Oh, that makes sense why I don't know it then.
It's a song about the guy who would getting back on what you were just talking about. It's a song thanking the guy that would ship out all their merch.
Oh, okay. I'm just very behind on merch, and I said it wasn't going to happen, and then my printer broke. Ooh. And so I got it replaced, but then it was like I didn't want to start a project in the middle of painting, so I'm just basically a terrible person, and every time I ship stuff out, I say I'm never going to let it back up again, and then I do.
Okay, what are we going to say about this guitar?
What we're going to say about it is, what movie does this guitar make you think of?
The one on the boat with the cyborg.
The one on the boat with the cyborg?
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No. The one on the boat with the cyborg. Under Siege?
No. Cyborg on a boat is what I'm searching for.
Is this like a different version of Titanic?
It's not. Virus, 1999.
Oh, I recall that name. I did not know it was about a cyborg or a boat.
Well, what happens is it's like this radio science vessel boat, and this code gets sent down to it from aliens. And it starts turning all the technology on the boat into a cyborg, and it takes over like one of the guy's bodies. You see, here's a picture of his body being taken over. Oh,
wild!
And at the end, it's like a robot with a human skull embedded in it, because it's this alien code that and they have to they have to sacrifice the boat and destroy the boat so that this virus doesn't get off the boat to the rest of the telecommunications network and stuff like that.
Is that the plot of look at that
cyborg. It's a fun movie.
Really?
I don't know. What were you going to say, Steve?
I was going to say Hellraiser.
Ooh, yeah, there's a Hellraiser vibe here.
This gives me, and I think a new Hellraiser movie just came out. This gives me big Hellraiser vibes. And does
Ben Eller listen to this podcast? Everyone should go look up Ben Eller's horror movie podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that Ben Eller, the guitar shreddy boy on the YouTubes, he's got a horror movie podcast. Go check it out. It's called Dead and Lovely. I think is what it's called.
But yeah, that's what I thought of because I've been seeing a lot of Cenobites on my Instagram lately.
I haven't seen a Hellraiser movie in a very long time.
I don't know if I've actually ever seen a Hellraiser movie.
All these Cenobites, they love pain and misery. So they're always just pulling their skin off and stretching things and exposing all their muscles and things like that and just poking things into themselves. They just love it.
Yeah. So that's what I get out of this. Or like, I mean, it's like a twisted version of the Borg.
You do kind of have to love pain to play this bass.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to love pain to play bass in general, right?
Wow.
Where's Blaine Fricker when you need him?
What is okay, look at the second picture. Look at the top of the second picture.
Oh, there's another one.
Like an SG looking thing. It's got a freaking saw blade sticking out of it.
I didn't even see that.
What?
This guy's a repeat offender. He's got to have a band that this is for.
Repeat offender, more like Repeata Gibson.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I think this bass looks like maybe it started as a Schecter.
You're probably right.
It's some kind of P bass.
But it's got the double-sided headstock. Something's going on with the headstock of the tuners.
Well, I think he's taken off the key, like
he's put
keys
things
and like
on
attached like nuts to them.
Yeah, he made the you know what? There's some creative elements here. He made the knobs, these giant lug nuts. I want what are the spikes?
This guy loves nuts.
He loves nuts. There's diamond plate steel as pick guards. There's giant conduit piping running all over the place, getting in the way of the strings. There's random metal parts here and there. What is that, like a fiberglass thing he made to hold the spikes? Like
I don't.
There's like there's like a biomechanical thing going on here where it almost feels like there's like a growth coming out of the guitar that the spikes are protruding from. A lot of this is extremely impractical and non-ergonomic and in the way of this being a functional instrument.
Maybe a little unsettling.
But as stage dressing, like if this fits the look of a band, then like what can you say?
You could not, like, at a show, you shouldn't do this in general. I don't recommend it. But you see these shows where the guys, like, at the end of the show, they're like, they take their guitar and they just, like, throw it into the crowd.
No, you couldn't do that with this.
You could not do that.
No, someone would die.
You're already at risk of, like, an insurance claim if you hit someone in the head with a guitar. We happen to know someone that happened to. If you caught them with one of these... that's like a wrongful death suit.
Yeah. Well, assuming that it's physically sound and that metal is actually...
I'm pretty sure those are real
metal.
spikes.
Well, every spike is a real spike, but how strong are they? Is that going to be like tinfoil that collapses, or is it like a solid chunk of steel?
It looks like metal.
It does look like metal. What, they want $250 for this?
Yeah, it's an Australian 250, but I don't know what that is in the US.
It's an Australian 250, like, the old thing. The old thing saying about Australian 250s. I mean, if this fits the look of your band, why not, I guess? The vast majority of these modifications do not look reversible. This is non-reversible. There are holes drilled and things were done, and it's not going back. But
what?
If you want this or not, and everyone else is like, why would I ever want this?
Ryan, how much would you pay for this guitar?
Under the pretense that I have a band that it would fit the look of.
Under the pretense of gun to your head, like, what is your maximum offer on this guitar?
So how I usually buy guitars.
Yeah.
A normal situation. I would have to offer like $60.
Okay. The US conversion to this is $162.
It's not insane. Like, I get it. Like, if it does fit the look of your band, then it's like, that's an easy purchase, $160.
Yeah.
It's not like he's trying to upsell it as like, oh, here's the thing that I crafted. He knows.
Right.
He knows what he did. Like this, he's not oblivious. He's just like, he's seeing if he can find a buyer for his guitar. All right, are we going to open mail now?
No, we're going to do a sponsor spot.
All right.
This episode's brought to you by this slice of pie from Big Ear Pedals.
There it is.
Big Ear Pedals is warming the shop back up. They're heating up those soldering irons.
Yep.
Get on that list. BigEarPedals.com.
Follow them on social medias.
Follow them on the socials.
Get on their email lists.
Posted some stuff recently.
Yeah.
Indicating that they will be back in business, ready to go pretty dang soon. If they're not already.
Who knows?
This episode is also brought to you by
Chase Bliss Audio, makers, well, not anymore, of the Tonal Recall. And if you want to make sure that your favorite Chase Bliss pedal is in your collection before it's on the not anymore shelf, make sure you go follow them on social media, get on their email list, and check out what they have to offer right now before you miss out. How is my radio advertisement voice, Steve?
It's okay. All right, Ryan, guess what time it is?
Go buy a Generation Loss. Get on the waiting list for the next round of Generation Losses. What are you asking?
Guess what time it is?
What time is it, Steve?
It's time to open mail.
Finally! Here, you take the letter. I'll take the package. I should probably grab the Cyclone because there's probably stickers in there. Keep talking.
I'm opening the letter. This is from Colby Lamarche. He says, "What's up, boys? In high school 10 years ago, two of my friends and me were in a band together. We scrounged together money to buy a big pile of stickers. Recently, I discovered them in my basement and would love for us to be immortalized on the Cyclone. I threw in some extras for you to stick wherever your heart desires. I think our Bandcamp still exists. We rocked pretty hard. Thanks, Colby Lamarck. P.S. There is for sure more than one Irrelevancy. Because the band is called Irrelevancy. There's for sure more than one Irrelevancy. We were the less popular one." Oh, very cool.
There's some good places for these rectangle stickers. Let's just do them all. Let's get them all on.
You want to do them all?
Yeah.
Here, I'll slap these stickers on. You want to work on that box?
Yeah, I'll work on the box. Okay, this is another box from our friends at the Flatwoods Monster Museum. So it's sure to be packed full of more fantastic, cryptid themed merch items. We've got ourselves a Braxy Bazaar t-shirt here, Steve. You got the other one of these, right?
I do. I have one of those.
So that one will be mine. Oh my gosh, there's a couple of shirts in here. Flatwoods Monster Festival 20th anniversary. That's fun.
Dude, look at the back.
Whoa, a bunch of sponsors. Dairy Queen's on there. That's cool. Dairy Queen sponsored the Flatwoods monster thing. We got some packs of, oh my gosh. What are
these trading cards?
They're trading cards. Meta Zoo. Interesting. They're like Pokemon cards, but for like cryptids. That's fun. You want to split these, Steve? Half for your kids, half for mine?
I almost feel like we need to steal a bit from the Greatest Generation and just play war with them.
Oh, look at this shirt. Oh, I'm stealing this one. This one's for me. Oh, that's cool. It's got Japanese on it. Yeah, I'm going to wear that shirt. All right, we've got a letter down here. I think I opened the box upside down, which is why everything's at the bottom. I'm going to wear those shirts next episode. Look at that! There's a fun sticker. It's a strawberry Flatwoods monster.
Let's throw this on here. This is a good shape. I think I can find a good spot for this.
Dear Ryan and Steve, it's been a while since the Flatwoods Monster Museum located in Sutton, West Virginia, has sent you something, so we had to fix that. We recently printed 2 new shirt designs and wanted you to have one of each. No fighting or thumb wrestling. We can send more. Just let us know. We also sent along some packs of MetaZoo cards that we thought you might enjoy. If not, your kids might. These are kind of like Pokemon cards, but the monsters they feature are supposedly real creatures that people have seen in real life, like the Flatwoods monster. We hope you enjoy these. Have a great day. Thank you, Andrew. I really enjoy that we get this Flatwoods stuff. Like, that's really fun.
I put it on the back. I think that's a real nice permanent spot.
Perfect.
Right there. Shiny. I got some of these Irrelevancy stickers over here. Been listening to a lot of This Is Rad lately.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got to say about that.
We're filling it up. It's going to be full soon. If people keep sending stickers, it's going to be all full up, and then I'm going to have to figure out a way to actually give it away to someone.
Oh, you know what? I should... Yeah.
No, it's fine. I hope that doesn't fall over. All right, what's next, Steve? Keep us on track, because I
You got
can't.
anything new?
Nah. Do you?
Kind of.
What do you have new, Steve?
My wife painted my office for me
Nice.
because I'm incompetent.
You're not incompetent.
I did some of the.
Well, I don't know if I've ever seen you paint. You might be.
I did some of the prep work, like the tape. Did some of the taping. But yeah, she's because when I'm not patient.
Right.
Even for like house painting, I'm not patient enough to like do the one. She's got a whole method. She's like, okay, I'm going to do the cut in first, and then I'm going to do the cut in at the top and the cut in at the bottom, and then I'll do everything in the middle. And I just want to do like, why can't I use the roller all the way to the top? She's like, because you're going to paint the freaking ceiling. I'm going to be like, no, I won't. I'll be really careful. And then like 5 minutes later,
I painted the ceiling.
Entire ceiling is painted. So I'm an idiot.
I personally hate painting inside the house. I hate painting outside I hate house painting.
Right.
Painting walls and stuff like that. My wife wants to paint the house all sorts of creative colors, and I'm pretty much just like, you can do whatever color you want in any room you want as long as I don't have to do it. So that's the rules around here.
Yeah. So
she's painting your home office, which is like you might be doing live videos from there.
Yeah. So we got 3 of the 4 walls done, and I thought originally I was going to do all 4 of the walls in the same color, but I think we decided that we're just going to do 3 walls for now, and the 4th one we may just do a gray to offset it, because it does feel a little closed in now in there.
Yeah.
And I think if I paint all 4 of the walls the same color, it's going to feel really boxy. But we're gonna hold off on that 4th wall for a while. And the 3 walls are the important ones because those are the ones that would show up.
Sure.
If I do any sort of like live shoots at home or any kind of filming.
Totally.
In there. So yeah, it's really cool. I'm really excited. If you follow us on Instagram, you've already probably potentially seen it. So
well, there you go.
Because I posted it a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I posted like the progress of it, but now it's done. So very exciting stuff. Oh, I also want to say this Daredevil pilot shirt was also sent to us by a listener. So like the Flatwoods Monster stuff, if you want to send us shirts to wear, send it in to the address. Yeah. That's it, man. That's all I got. Nice. You ready to hit this next ad?
Yeah, let's hit it.
All right, cool. This next ad was sent by Greg Straub.
This is the
guitar clean out.
Oh, that's right. Both of our next ads are going to be from Greg.
So this is in Toaster. Is that really how that's pronounced?
So this guy's got a bunch of guitars.
Is this really pronounced Toaster? Do you think it's Towchester?
Towchester.
Towster? Maybe it's Towster.
Towster.
England.
Toaster. I think it is Toaster.
Having a guitar clear out to make room for something new. He's got a EVH 5150 FR for 550, Kramer Pacer Classic, Maverick F1 FR, a Sterling Music Man JP 50, and then a Blackstar Club 40 Mark II amplifier.
So this guy's clearing out a bunch of his kind of like mid-priced shredder guitars. I don't want to like sound like I'm trying to degrade him, but you kind of like your starter shredders, you know?
Sure.
But the only reason I want to talk about this ad is because of these wild knobs on the white guitar. What was the brand again?
This is a Maverick.
The Maverick
F1 F. He's calling it a Maverick F1 FR.
The knobs are mounted sideways in the guitar like thumb rollers. You know, like you don't turn them like rotating like a clock. You roll them with like the flat part of your finger, you know, or your thumb or something like that. I've never seen that done before, and there's little cutouts around them to give you space for your finger to interact with them. I really like the way it looks. I really like the thought of the concept. I in no way think that's a superior design.
I'm just trying to figure out, like, I've never heard of this brand. This body reminds me a little bit of like, it reminds me a little bit of the new Music Man is it called the Kaizen
I don't know.
model? It's the new Tosin Abasi model.
That cut on the top edge is really wild. That like German carves that turns into a swoop. Like this guitar has some unique body shaping going on for sure.
But I cannot figure out like what's the history of this brand.
Right.
There's lots of reviews of the guitar. This person says they bought it from Denmark Street in London for £500 in 2004. So is this just some like late 90s, early 2000s?
It probably like, remember that brand Laguna?
Yeah.
That would like show up in like all the mom and pop stores and like pawn shops and stuff like that. I bet it's an equivalent of that where it's like something that has like some sort of like nice features to it or some like unique features. But then you're like, why is this like a $380 guitar? And I've never heard about it before. Like, what is it doing here? It's some sort of like import brand that was built up to, have decent specs, but like you've never heard of it and you never will again sort of situation.
It sounds like the company went bankrupt in the early 2000s. But here's a review from Music Radar in 2007 for the Maverick F4. And they say that it's described as all Maverick guitars are produced by applying perimeter manufacturing. What does that mean? Okay, this means that instead of using automated CNCs and producing a number of identical bodies at a time, each body is cut by hand using a combination of pin router and good old human interaction.
Okay, sure.
Basically, the shape is drawn on in pencil using our templates and then in turn carved by hand. So it's designed to compare to like the Suhr high-end guitars is kind of like the goal. And somewhere in here it says that this is basically like a British high-end. A lot of the hardware on the one that they're reviewing here is Wilkinson hardware, which makes sense.
Well, this one that we're looking at in the ad, it looks decent. Looks like it has a decent Floyd on it.
Yeah.
It has EMGs, assuming they're EMGs and not OMGs, but like just the custom hardware itself and all the details look like what I would expect from, like a well-built $400 to $600 guitar of the era. It's just like you've never heard of the brand before and you've never seen some of those concepts before. And so it's like, what even is this?
Yeah. So in the description, it's in this review, it says that these are parts made in Korea and assembled in the UK. This was listed as $649. Not this exact one, because this is the F1, sure. And this review's for the F4.
Well, that's 4 more.
I know.
Well, it's 3 more.
It was 650 pounds in 2007. So that's actually like, again, it would be comparable to like the higher end price range on like a Schecter.
Totally.
Actually, probably like the higher end, like the Schecter C1 Classic.
I don't know,
like that type of guitar.
300 pounds is what they want for this right now?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of compelling looking. Like I might get that without the intention of, trying to play shred on it. Just being like, here's an interesting guitar.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I want one right now. I don't. I'm saying that like if I was in the place where I was shopping, like window shopping, and I saw that pop up, I might sit there and stare at it for a while and think that I want to take a chance on it, Because it looks cool. It does some unique stuff.
It's got a
side knobs are really interesting.
The knobs are really interesting. It's got some PV, vibe going on, or like
kind of Yamaha-ish.
Yeah, Yamaha. Remember when they had that white like iPhone looking guitar?
Yeah. Speaking of cyborgs, like it looked like an Android. It looked like one of those iRobots.
And then, like, this is what I was talking about. This,
that's wild.
Music Man, this is the Kaizen.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Music Man, but I feel like I get this. Like, it's very different. The Music Man Kaizen is a full offset. It's a very offset guitar.
Those two guitars could be in the same band.
Yeah, it's probably great because it's an offset. It's probably really great for surf guitar. I'm pretty sure that's what.
That's how offsets work.
That's what Tosin Abasi plays, right? As surf.
As long as it's offset, then it's a surf guitar.
Yeah. What about, do you have anything to say about any of these other guitars?
No, I mean, it's just...
Look, Ryan, it's yellow.
Yeah, it's someone clearing out their affordable shredder guitars.
Yeah.
And a Black Star amp.
John Petrucci,
Yeah.
the greatest selling signature artist of all time.
It's the Sterling version. Like all these guitars are the Sterling versions of themselves. You know, like you know that Maverick was interesting because it's different. The rest of these, like you can go buy these right now off the shelf. So.
Yeah.
All right. What's next, Steve? Sponsorship.
Sponsor spot.
Yeah.
This episode's brought to you by Demonic Machines.
We didn't pull a new pedal.
Octafuzz. We didn't pull a new pedal.
But this is a cool one. You use this to add like the octave part of a octave fuzz to other drives or to a clean signal. It's weird, it's glitchy, it's freaky, it plays well with other dirt pedals and boosts and things like that. It's compelling. Go watch my video on it, see if there's other videos on it, get to know it because it's a fun pedal.
Check it out, demonicmachines.com.
Yep.
This episode's also brought to you by Stringjoy, stringjoy.com, or click the link below because it tracks. It gives you your tracking. Stringjoy.
Are you string sad? Are you string down in the dumps? Well, get yourself some Stringjoy in your life. Go over to their custom set builder and put together the wildest, craziest set you can imagine. And maybe you're not going to order it, but at least you conceptualized it and you know that it could exist if you want it to. You want a set of strings that's all low E's, like 56, 56, 56, 56, 56, 56. Go
Stringjoy.
Stringjoy. You can do it.
This last ad was sent to us by Greg Straub. It is the Ratleth. It's got not. This is a rat. It's from Birch Audio. They make this.
It's not really an ad. It's just a picture of this pedal.
Picture of this pedal from Birch Audio. The Ratleth. People have been wanting us to talk about this for a long time.
And here we are. We're doing it.
Honor, glory,
heart.
I think instead of the heart knob, it should be honor, glory, and empire. I think the last one should be empire.
The honor knob should range from honor to dishonor. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you know exactly where you're at. You know? Like you want a brighter sound, then you're going for honor. You want a darker sound, you're going for dishonor, you know?
This has got a picture of a batleth on it. This is clearly a Star Wars themed pedal.
Yeah, this is a Star Wars pedal for sure.
Okay, it's got Worf on it. If you put a character on this, is Worf your go-to for this?
I would probably want what was the Klingon leader with the crazy eyes?
Gowron. That's what I was thinking. Gowron from a meme standpoint, I think he's a much more memeable Klingon. But I think but
I would want his face big, and I'd want the LEDs to be his eyes.
Oh my god! I bet Noise Kick
right
has that. I was thinking though, it would probably confuse most people. I want this to be a General Martok pedal. That's the Klingon I want on this.
There you go. What was I want Worf's kid on here.
I feel like I said, I think I would just change heart for something else.
You know what would be a great companion pedal for this?
What?
A Wesley Bit Crusher.
Oh my gosh! how does that not? And it can have like the sweater colors.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Idea. That's a good. You don't even want to use a Bit Crusher, and you want that pedal.
I mean, I tried to build a
we should have like pre-gamed this and figured out more pedal puns for Star Trek.
What's that sound? Ring modulator. I tried to build a ring modulator once.
Well, that's not the same as a Bit Crusher.
It's not exactly the same.
Yeah.
Bit Crusher. That's good. That's real good. Wesley Bit Crusher.
So we got to Photoshop it up, or get chips in on that one.
Yeah. I was thinking, a real obvious one would be a Phasor.
Well, yeah, Phaser. There's probably dozens of Trek themed Phaser pedals out there.
Yeah. I don't know what else. What else would you have?
I mean, like you could make like a gravimetric distortion, and there's, all sorts of like, you could name, like various delays after, time dilation,
you
like
just wanted to call it
technobabble.
like the chronoton emitter.
You
That's what the delay should be called.
Sure.
People are going to be like, why don't you call it the time zero?
Or like something with tachyons or something like that. Yeah. And guys, this is your opportunity. Get in the comment section, suggest names and concepts for Star Trek themed pedals.
A compressor sustainer called the deflector dish.
There you go. Well, wouldn't that be like a noise gate?
Oh yeah, that'd
be cool.
Gate, yeah. What else?
There's a tribble fuzz. I don't know. Or a tribble delay because it replicates. Something with the transporter. I don't know.
I'm thinking real hard. It's always like we're gonna finish this. We're gonna play the last song in a second. We're gonna finish this. We're gonna pack up. I'm gonna get to my car. And then I'm gonna be like, oh,
right.
Should have been this, whatever thing.
You know what? Think about it during the song. And it's like, we'll say our best ones when the song is done, if we can think of any.
All right. This song was sent to us by Kyle Saloka. Let's see. He says, hey guys, have this demo recording. The vocals are one take and a bit pitchy, but you'll get the general idea. The song wouldn't exist without the DL4 Mark II. I started up a drum machine beat and started playing around with loops. This was the result. I've enjoyed seeing what you have to say about some of my past submissions, so please give your honest opinion. Sunglasses emoji. This song is called Let It Roll Off.
Questions float around, and a few things I find profound. Fact and opinion are my clouds, with emotion raining down. Ooh, yeah. There are so many ways in life that you can feel. Highs and lows and cuts and blows will send you round the wheel. Sometimes dumb shit happens, so you have to know how to deal. Let it roll on, let it roll on your back. We all need time, we all need space. After all, this world's a shitty place. Don't let it infect your mind. You cannot think about it all the time. Yeah. There are so many ways in life that you can feel. Highs and lows and cuts and blows will send you round the wheel. Sometimes dumb shit happens, so
loved everything about that.
Really?
That was very, very fun and very much a very cool energy.
That was a really good like first take on a vocal.
Yeah, it was perfect. Like I'd listen to a full album of that. Yes, please. Did you think of any Star Trek pedal puns?
I was trying to think of one. I just couldn't come up with a good one.
Well, don't worry, Steve. I thought of 3.
Okay, hit me.
An obvious one, a warp drive,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
an acoustic assimilator, this Borg themed, or it could be like an impulse response assimilator, and it like you use it to model like your amps or something like that. Your amps distinctiveness will be added to its own, and the live long and compressor. That's the worst one.
All right.
It's a bit of a stretch, isn't it? But warp drive.
Warp drive. Well, doesn't Fender already have a warp drive?
Probably.
I know they just can't, or is it just they did overdrive in the Star Trek TNG font?
Right.
Because all of their hammer tone pedals,
right,
have like font.
It might be over
references.
there right now.
Let's see.
It's either on the shelf or on the.
That's the reverb metal.
Look up on the shelf.
Overdrive.
Is it the Star Trek text?
That's like the next generation. Text.
It is. Okay. That's what they were going for. So warp drive is still open. Someone make it. All right. Bye, everyone. Stay grounded.
Stay grounded.